Kurt Busch declared prior to the race that his brother's ghost would accompany him. He then went out and came close to winning. This is the tale of what transpired when grief collided with one of the largest motorsport stages. This past weekend marked Kurt Busch's first trip back to the racetrack since burying his younger brother, Kyle Busch. The subsequent events were not anticipated. The racing world was shocked when a driver who was still grieving the loss of a sibling stepped into a race vehicle, achieved nearly 200 miles per hour, and finished on the podium. His third-place finish was secured by a mere 0.011 seconds. It's not a typo. That's the kind of number that plays repeatedly for years. The historic NASCAR Classic, sponsored by Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, took place at the storied Circuit de Lazare near Le Mans, France, from July 3 to July 5, 2026. The significance of this weekend went well beyond the individual tale of one driver. For the first time in the series' nearly 50-year history, competition was held abroad. The event calendar consisted of 3 distinct races, providing drivers with 3 chances to compete on one of the world's most challenging circuits. Kurt Busch drove his top-ranked Monster Energy Chevrolet Camaro, a former Chip Ganassi racing chassis that he had driven to triumph at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in September 2020, into the weekend. A spotter's guide released prior to the tournament claims that Busch made a choice that completely changed the significance of his weekend. He changed the number on his car from 1 to 8, which his brother Kyle Busch made famous throughout his professional career. This was not a small detail. Before a single lap was completed, a purposeful tribute was incorporated into the machine. Busch produced the moment that summed up the entire event in the second race of the weekend. A maximum speed of 197 miles per hour was captured by his onboard camera. He outran rival J.C. France going into the penultimate chicane with a pass that secured third place in the final stretch. The ultimate difference between them was 0.011 seconds, which is so small that, at racing speeds, it hardly counts. Throughout the weekend, J.C. France maintained his own noteworthy plot. He won the series' first race in a 2014 Chevrolet Camaro with the Garage 56 livery. He is the grandson of NASCAR founder Bill France Sr. His triumph came precisely 50 years after his grandpa introduced stock cars to the 24-hour 6 Sierra Leonean Leones, making a complete circle that connected the NASCAR founding family to this momentous international debut. But for Kurt Busch, the significance of this weekend went beyond ancestry or history. Since his younger brother, Kyle Busch, passed away unexpectedly on May 21, 2026, at the age of 41, this was his first competitive driving experience. After the 2022 season, Kurt Busch had already given up competing in the NASCAR Cup Series full-time. This indicates that this race was more than just a return to his sport. He decided to make his complete comeback to professional racing on one of the world's most challenging circuits in a foreign country. It helps to know what NASCAR lost when Kyle Busch passed away in order to comprehend the emotional burden of riding with him. Kyle Busch was more than just a victor. With 234 career wins in all 3 National Touring Series, he was the most successful driver in NASCAR history. That sum is unmatched by any driver in sports history, not even Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt, or Richard Petty. In addition, he won the NASCAR Cup Series twice, in 2015 and 2019. Kyle Busch won a Craftsman Truck Series race at Dover Motor Speedway just 6 days prior to his passing. This was his 69th Truck Series triumph and his 234th overall series victory. He emerged victorious, continuing to compete at the top level of his sport and carrying on with his life's work. Kurt Busch made some of his first public remarks following the passing of his brother before to the green flag being dropped at Le Mans. "Kyle's spirit will always ride with me," he stated. Kyle Busch would have wanted nothing more than to be racing right there with him, he continued, adding that it was still hard to accept his brother's passing. Kurt Busch expressed optimism that the weekend would turn into an homage presented in true Kyle fashion. Examining how swiftly things transpired is essential to comprehending the scope of what occurred on May 21. Kyle Busch had been suffering from bacterial pneumonia for days to weeks prior to his death, according to the death certificate that was obtained by several news outlets. That sepsis, a potentially fatal illness that arises when the body's reaction to an infection starts to harm its own tissue and organs, developed from pneumonia. According to the certificate, the infection continued for about a day and resulted in disseminated intravascular coagulation, a disorder that causes irregular blood clotting throughout the body's blood vessels. Hemorrhagic shock, which arises from significant internal or external blood loss, was ultimately brought on by that situation. Hemorrhagic shock and disseminated intravascular coagulation only persisted for a few hours before to his demise. The chronology preceding his demise depicts a driver who persisted in competing despite his deteriorating health. While competing at Watkins Glen International on May 10th, Kyle Busch radioed his crew to let them know he required medical assistance, saying, "I'm gonna need a shot." He kept racing in spite of this. He was asked if he felt better after winning the Truck Series in Dover on May 15th. "You can kind of hear it," he replied, gesturing to his face. "I'm still not very good." He continued to make public appearances in the days that followed, including as the May 19th opening of an indoor karting facility and the May 20th fan visit at his race store. His condition quickly changed that evening. Kyle Busch was utilizing a racing simulator at the General Motors Charlotte Technical Center in Concord, North Carolina, when an emergency call was made at 5:30 p.m. on May 20th. The caller reported feeling extremely hot, having trouble breathing, and coughing up blood. The next day, May 21st, 2026, he passed away after being taken to a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. The certificate stated natural causes as the official cause of death. The racing community has been troubled by a fact that this timeline highlights. There was no retirement for Kyle Busch. He did not sustain any injuries during the competition. He was competing aggressively, winning races, and disappearing a week after his last triumph. The two brothers' relationship went far beyond the racetrack, and their shared past helps to explain why this specific race held so special significance for them. Kurt Busch was admitted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame earlier in 2026, and he was introduced on stage at the ceremony by his younger brother, Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch discussed their childhood during that induction speech, characterizing their Las Vegas, Nevada, family as blue-collar and industrious, stating that hard work was never optional in their home. He concluded by expressing he was honored to name Kurt Busch his brother and taking pleasure in his older brother's tenacity. Kurt Busch's decision to pay tribute to Kyle Busch right away after his death demonstrated that same connection. Kurt Busch put 8 white roses on a number 8 logo painted in the infield at the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, the first NASCAR race staged following Kyle Busch's passing. 1 rose was placed for each digit that represented his brother's famous car number. Surprisingly, all 8 blooms held together for the duration of the race. The tone for what came next was established in that moment. The podium finish and the change to the number 8 vehicle at Llama were part of a larger tribute. It was the continuation of a trend of Race of Champions, which is sponsored by Chevrolet. The pattern of memory that started at the Coca-Cola 600 and continued to the number 8 tribute vehicle at Lemons is anticipated to continue with more tributes and retrospective coverage from racing outlets as the anniversary of Kyle Busch's death draws near later this year. This story's key question is still unanswered. Was it appropriate for Kurt Busch to resume professional racing so soon after grieving his brother in order to deal with his grief? Or is it a risk that hasn't been thoroughly examined over a longer period of competition? Nothing was conclusively answered by the podium finish at Llama. It merely demonstrated how a bereaved brother got into a race with his sibling's number and drove it as if his instincts had never departed for one weekend on one of the world's most difficult courses.